ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणम्। Hare Krishna and welcome back to today's episode of the Mahabharata. Today we will be learning about what happened to that son of Kunti who was set afloat in the river in a basket. We also will look at who were the descendants of Dhritarashtra and Pandu. We had shared with you about the descent of the Yadava dynasty from Pururava. If you might recollect, Pururava's son was Ayu, Ayu's son was Nahusha, Nahusha's son was Yayati, and from there on Yayati's son Yadu gave rise to the Yadava dynasty. Now Pururava's son Ayu had one more son by the name Kshatravriddha. A few generations, about 20 generations after Kshatravriddha, came a person called Adhiratha. This Adhiratha, he was a charioteer by profession. This Adhiratha married a woman called Radha. So after several years, this Adhiratha and Radha did not have any children, and they always used to feel a little sad that they did not have any offspring. Once this Adhiratha had gone to the river for bathing, and while he was bathing in the river, suddenly he saw in the river a small basket came floating, and he looked into the basket and he found a beautiful young baby, a male baby inside the basket, adorned with golden earrings and bracelets and a golden armor, and this child was looking really very effulgent. Adhiratha looked around and he could not see anybody else in the river. Now he understood that somebody has forsaken the baby, and he took the baby home and he gave it to his wife Radha, saying that, see, we did not have children, now by the will of providence we have got a son, let us raise him nicely. And this son was none other than Kunti's son Karna. And this is how Karna grew up as the son of Adhiratha, as a son of a charioteer. Now Pandu, he had married Kunti and Madri, but on account of a curse he incurred, he could not have intercourse with his wives and he could not beget children. Being disappointed with this, Pandu went away to the Himalayas and he was residing there. Pandu made his residence in a place called Pandukeshwar, which is in the district of Chamoli in Uttarakhand, and about 20-25 kilometers in that range from Badrinath. He built a temple for Lord Vishnu also there, and even today it is said that during the winter season, the Utsav Murtis of Badri Narayan, they go to Pandukeshwar and they receive worship there, and once the winter is over, they go back to the Badrinath temple. This is the system even today. Pandu, along with Kunti and Madri, was staying in a small hermitage kind of place in a very simple accommodation in Pandukeshwar. In due course of time, Pandu came to know about the mantra that Kunti had received from Durvasa. Durvasa, as we might recollect, had foreseen that Kunti would have trouble in having children in her marriage, and that was the specific reason why he had given her this mantra. Now Pandu requested Kunti that since he could not beget children in her, he requested her to use the mantra and invoke some devatas to beget some children so that the dynasty could go forward and there could be qualified people to rule the kingdom. Kunti Devi used this mantra and first she called for Yamaraj. And Yamaraj appeared before her and blessed her with a son. Now the question arises that Yamaraj had already taken birth as Vidura. When this mantra was invoked, how did Yamaraj appear here? We have to understand that the Devatas or the demigods have the power to incarnate. They might be present in their personal form, at the same time they can incarnate as some other person. Just like we see how Durvasa Muni is an incarnation of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is personally present in Kailasa. Durvasa Muni is also present at the same time. These kind of capability of the Devatas to incarnate themselves is not uncommon. Although Yamaraj had given up his abode during his incarnation as Vidura, nevertheless, when the mantra was invoked and Yamaraj was called for, he appeared in his original form as Yamaraj in front of Kunti Devi while Vidura was still in Hastinapura. Vidura continued to remain in Hastinapura. At the same time, Yamaraj in his original form appeared before Kunti Devi and he blessed her with a son, and this son was Yudhishthira. After Yudhishthira was born, Kunti Devi again, upon the request of Pandu, used the mantra again and she remembered Vayudev, the god of the wind. And Vayudev appeared and blessed her with a son who would be very powerful, and he came out to be Bhima. Yamaraj blessed Kunti Devi with a son who would be very virtuous and righteous, and that was Yudhishthira. Third time, upon Pandu's request, Kunti Devi remembered Indra, and Indra blessed Kunti Devi with a son who was an unrivaled warrior, which was Arjuna. Next, now that Kunti Devi had given birth to 3 sons, Pandu wanted that Madri also should not be neglected. So, Kunti Devi shared the mantra with Madri, and Madri remembered the Ashwini Kumaras, the twin Devatas, and they came and blessed Madri with twin sons who were Nakula and Sahadeva. And in this way, these 5 sons were born to Kunti Devi. Now, in the meantime, the news reached Hastinapura as soon as Yudhishthira was born to Kunti. When Gandhari heard this, she was also pregnant. But when she heard that Kunti Devi has given birth to a son before she could give birth to a son, she got very disappointed. Because now that Yudhishthira is born and he is the elder son, he will get the throne. Naturally, Gandhari, even though of course she was a good friend of Kunti Devi, still this kind of feeling of competition was there between her and Kunti Devi, and so she felt upset that she could not give birth to her child before Kunti Devi gave birth. And so naturally what happened, she felt very upset, and out of frustration she struck her abdomen. And the force with which she struck her abdomen, immediately the embryo came out of her womb. And unfortunately, that womb was not fully developed, it came out as a lump of flesh. Now Gandhari was even more distraught. She was feeling sorry that she had not given birth to a child before Yudhishthira was born. Now that she had given birth, she gave birth to just a lump of flesh. Now at this moment of distress, she remembered Vyasadeva. Because she was a devotee of Vyasadeva, she remembered him. And Vyasadeva appeared on the spot upon her remembrance, and taking compassion upon her, by his blessings, that lump of flesh turned into 100 sons, headed by Duryodhana. And like this, the 100 sons were born to Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, while the 5 sons of Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula and Sahadeva were born to Kunti and Madri. Apart from this, Dhritarashtra also married a Vaishya woman, and from her he had a son, and whose name was Yuyutsu, and he grew up as the one of the brothers of the 100 Kaurava brothers. Gandhari also gave birth to one daughter, Dushala, and she was the younger sister of the Kaurava brothers. In due course of time, in Pandukeshwar, Pandu and Kunti Devi and Madri, they were all living together with their children, and unfortunately one day it so happened that Pandu died. When he died, the two wives, Kunti and Madri, were so much afflicted by the pain of separation from their great husband that both of them wanted to commit sati when the Antyakriya, the cremation of Pandu, was going to be performed. But now the question was, there were 5 young boys, children, who needed to be taken care of. There was some amount of discussion between Kunti and Madri. Kunti told Madri that you take care of the children, I will commit sati. But Madri said, no, you please take care of the children, I will commit sati. And so like this, both of them were discussing with each other. We can understand from this that the system of sati that was prevalent in the Vedic times was not actually a forced evil which was compulsorily to be followed by every woman whose husband died. If we look at even the history of the Mahabharata, even after Shantanu died, Satyavati did not commit sati. Similarly, when Vichitravirya died, both Ambika and Ambalika also did not commit sati. So it was not a forced thing. But then, what was the reason behind this practice of sati? Even today, we can see in some instances, a boy and a girl fall in love with each other. And then what happens is, the parents don't agree. There is some opposition from the society towards their marriage. Unable to bear the separation, unable to live in separation of each other, the boy and girl go and commit suicide. Why? Because for them to live in separation is a greater pain than to die. In a similar case, similar manner, during the Vedic times, the husband and the wife, the relationship between them used to be so strong that if the husband were to die, the wife would not be able to bear the separation. She would so much be loving towards her husband that she would feel it is better to die than to bear the pain of living in separation from my husband. And wherever a woman will feel so much pain, the society gave an option that if she could not bear the pain of separation, she could commit voluntarily sati along with the husband. This was the system. Now when Pandu died, both of the wives, Kunti and Madri, were very, very affectionate towards, very, very loving towards Pandu, and both of them could not bear the separation. But at the same time, they could not neglect their children also. So therefore, they were discussing with each other that you take care, I will commit sati. And both of them were not agreeing to this. Now because the Pandu was living in Pandukeshwar, which was like a hermitage, and it was surrounded by many, many sages. Many sages came to the spot, and they all saw how Kunti and Madri are not able to resolve the fact that one of them had to commit sati and one of them had to remain with the children. So finally, the sages mediated between the two of them, and they brought about a compromise wherein Madri would commit sati, and Kunti Devi agreed, despite the pain of separation, to stay behind and take care of the children. And in this manner, when Pandu's cremation was done, Madri committed suicide by doing sati, and Kunti Devi stayed behind to take care of the children. Now with her husband Pandu being no more, and Madri also no more on this earth, Kunti Devi found it difficult to stay in the forest and take care of her children. Therefore, she decided to come back to Hastinapura because that is the place where the children have to grow up. Ultimately, they have to succeed to the throne of Pandu, and so therefore she came back to Hastinapura so that the children could be taken care of properly there. And she came and under the shelter of Dhritarashtra, the Pandavas were also taken care in Hastinapura. Now, because Pandu had died, as an interim arrangement, Dhritarashtra was made the emperor, because there was nobody else who could occupy the throne. Although it was a well-known fact that under normal conditions, Dhritarashtra could not occupy the throne because of his disability, as we had discussed in the previous episode. Now, because it was an exigency, it was a unique situation, it was not a normal circumstance, therefore Dhritarashtra was made the emperor for as long as the Pandavas would not grow up. Once the Pandavas would grow up, it was understood that Dhritarashtra would hand over the kingdom to the Pandavas. And so like this, the Pandavas and their cousin brothers, the Kauravas, they grew up together in the household of Hastinapura. In the meantime, Adhiratha was taking care of Karna, and Karna was also growing up. Adhiratha being a charioteer in Hastinapura, Karna also grew up there, right there in Hastinapura itself. Now all these personalities were there in Hastinapura, and the situation in Hastinapura was developing in this manner. Now Bharadwaja Muni had a son by the name Dronacharya. This Dronacharya was a highly elevated Brahmana, highly qualified, and he married the twin sister of another great Brahmana by name Kripacharya. This Kripacharya's twin sister was Kripi, and Dronacharya married Kripi. This Dronacharya went and meditated in the Himalaya hills and appeased Lord Shiva and learnt the art of warfare from him, especially the art of archery. It is said that Dehradun, the current day Dehradun city, is where Dronacharya went and performed austerities. And even today, if you go to Dehradun, there is a temple of Lord Shiva called Tapkeshwar Mahadev. It is called Tapkeshwar Mahadev because the deity of Lord Shiva is inside a cave, and inside the cave it is a completely natural rock cave, and inside the rock cave, when we go, from the ceiling of the rock cave constantly droplets of water keep dripping. So that's how it is called Tapkeshwar. In Hindi, Tapakna means the dropping of water dripping is called a Tapakna. So Tapkeshwar Mahadev, the Mahadeshwar of who is in a cave which is filled with dripping water, and this is on the bank of a small river. It is said that Dronacharya meditated upon Lord Shiva here and pleased him and got many benedictions as far as archery was concerned. This Dronacharya, it is said that after he married Kripi, to get a child, he again came to this Tapkeshwara Mahadev and prayed to Lord Shiva, and that is how he got the son Ashwathama. This Dronacharya was quite an accomplished teacher as far as the knowledge of warfare was concerned. Although he was such a highly learned Brahmana and he was highly reputed for his knowledge of the art of warfare, Dhanur Vidya, still he was in dire straits, he was in penury, and he was unable to maintain his family. Therefore, he came to Hastinapura and he decided that he would take up a job of teaching the princes, the Kaurava and the Pandava princes, and by that his family could be maintained. And thinking so, Dronacharya came to Hastinapura, being a disciple of Parashurama, also from whom he had learned a lot of the art of Dhanur Vidya. Bhishmadev also being a disciple of Parashurama, both of them knew each other, And this way, Dronacharya was quickly engaged in teaching Dhanurvidya to both the Kaurava as well as the Pandava brothers. Being Kshatriyas, it was necessary for them to learn the art of Dhanurvidya, learn the art of warfare. And so, Dronacharya was engaged in teaching both the Kauravas as well as the Pandavas the art of Dhanurvidya. Amongst all the children, Dronacharya noticed that Arjuna was a precocious child. In fact, Dronacharya came upon Arjuna once in the middle of the night when it was pitch dark. Arjuna was practicing the art of archery, and Dronacharya was surprised, and he saw how Arjuna was so determined to learn the art of archery, and therefore Dronacharya took a vow that he would make Arjuna the foremost archer in the whole world. And Dronacharya started paying special attention to Arjuna, recognizing his talent and his determination. Now, when the Pandavas and the Kauravas were all growing up, naturally there came about a rivalry between the Kauravas and the Pandava brothers, because Duryodhana knew that when they would grow up, Yudhishthira would ascend to the throne, and Duryodhana would be deprived of the right to sit on the throne. Because of this, Duryodhana always had some amount of envy towards the Pandava brothers, and therefore there was always some amount of rivalry between the cousin brothers, although it was not very severe like that, but still off and on some little bit of skirmishes and those kind of things continually kept happening, and the equation was not so good also. Anybody could sense that there is some amount of tension between the brothers. It was not, everything was not hunky and dory, but still it was not it had not become very severe or critical still. And although the brothers, there used to be some amount of friction between the brothers, they were still living together, growing together. They were all getting taught by the same teacher, Dronacharya, and like this they were growing up in Hastinapura. Now, when they were growing up, when they were becoming adolescents and the time was coming closer for the Pandavas to ascend to the throne, Duryodhana's enmity or his feelings of enviousness started increasing. In fact, Duryodhana had a special feeling of enviousness and enmity towards Bhima, because Bhima was very powerful, he was very strong, and his power exceeded that of Duryodhana, and so Duryodhana always felt a little bit of envy towards Bhima. In fact, it went to such an extent that once Duryodhana threw a feast to Bhima and he gave him a cake laced with poison, thinking that somehow let Bhima die. Bhima, even though he consumed the cake, poisoned cake, but still by Krishna's grace he did not die and he survived. And like this, some friction or the other kept happening, and the children all were growing up. Now, when the time was coming closer for Yudhishthira to ascend to the throne, Duryodhana could not brook. He could not. He was unable to accept the fact that Yudhishthira would soon become the emperor. So he started hatching a plan. He started hatching a plan to eliminate the Pandavas. Now, what did Duryodhana do, and how were the Pandavas affected by that? Please join us in our next episode of the Mahabharata to learn about this. Thank you very much for joining us today. Hare Krishna. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.